This weekend starts right after this. Great news. There's a quick way you could save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price, and it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
From Compass Media Networks, this is America's First News. This weekend with your host, Gordon Deal.
Tarnished titles. I'm Gordon Deal with Jennifer Kashenka. Final weekend of this month. Glad you could spend some time with us, and here's what's coming up this hour.
The Houston Astros sign-stealing scheme has had significant trickle-down effects. Should Major League Baseball vacate the team's World Series title from 2017?
On the food front, restaurants have completely bought into plant-based burgers, with one notable exception. We'll explain the McDonald's holdout.
Raheem Mostert dazzled in the NFC Championship with 220 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns for the 49ers. Hear his amazing backstory.
And it's one thing to have the means to retire, but what about the willingness to retire?
We're finding the workplace to be a place where people not only are going to make money, but they actually are living a heck of a lot of their lives there. And when they get to the point when they got to quit, they start saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to fully leave the workforce and hit the shuffleboard court.
John Stoll at the Wall Street Journal on the end of retirement. The Houston Astros sign-stealing scheme could be the apex of the cheating era, or maybe that's just the way things are now in sports. The scam involved the 2017 World Series champions using a television monitor near the dugout to watch the opposing catcher give his pitching signs, then having teammates bang a trash can to let the batter know what pitch was coming. Joe Drape, reporter at the New York Times, says it's time for Major League Baseball to vacate the Astros title. Joe, your take.
I mean, it's set off ripples. We know Carlos Beltran's the latest guy to fall, the Mets managers. The way I see it and what prompted us to take a look at this is, this is a pretty big cheating scandal, as big as steroids, arguably, but there's not seems to be the moral outrage. And in this day and age with technology and science and all these advancements just coming in rapid fashion, moral outrage is about all the good guys have left. And, this has happened. Yes, a few guys have lost their jobs, but we just wanted to ask the question of, where are we as a society and as a culture where we allow this to happen and not take titles away? And, in years, decades, generations past, they vacate titles.
Yeah. I was reading your piece and I was thinking to myself, am I getting too old to care anymore? And I can't relate to $300 million baseball contracts, or have I just come to expect this, this disappointment? I'm not sure where I am on that.
I think a lot of people are like that, Gordon. I mean, the first thing, honestly, is you kind of smirk and you think, wow, that's boys being boys, yeah, even though they're multi-million dollars guys. But then you think about what's at stake. And it's, your place in history. It is bonuses in some case. And, if you're the best in the world in baseball, which all these guys are supposed to be, why do you need to steal signs? And why do you need that edge? I think it says more about us as a culture is why are we always out trying to do the little extra thing, even though if it blurs the lines of right or wrong?
Yeah. So what about the idea of vacating titles? Should the Astros lose theirs and then the Red Sox lose theirs?
Yes, I think the Astros and the Red Sox should both lose their titles. It's done in the NCAA. John Calipari's had a few vacated at Memphis and a couple other places. UMass, I think, had victories taken away there. The Olympics and Lance Armstrong, they had their victories. You turn medals back, you get banned for life. Law and order is sort of a concept that is gone in sports right now. I mean, nobody really follows the rules, and when you get caught, why should you follow the rules? Because there's not much of a punishment.
We're speaking with Joe Drape, reporter at the New York Times. He's got a piece entitled "When Titles Are Tarnished by Cheating But Not Taken Away." All right, so you referenced how the Major League Baseball commissioner might be in a tough spot when it comes to vacating titles because he works for the owners, obviously, who control these teams that cheated. At the very least, what about an asterisk next to these? I mean, will that happen?
I don't think that'll happen, but yes, it should happen. And maybe it's enough that in the public perception, now the Astros and the Red Sox are thought of as asterisk teams. But, you brought up a good point. We addressed that a bit. I mean, why doesn't Mr. Crane be sanctioned here? Yeah, they're going to take a few draft picks. They're going to fine him a little bit. But, I'm from Kansas City, and where Harry Truman's from, and the buck stops here. I mean, if the culture is set from the top, he should have been sanctioned. Hey, they did it to Steinbrenner right here in New York. He had to go away for a year. So, I think some of those sort of penalties ought to be considered.
I think football and cycling, as you point out in your story, might be glad to have the spotlight off them.
Well, absolutely. Especially at this time of year for the NFL, they're having a great season. The ratings are up. But every time this goes around, you dodge the landmines of either the national anthem or concussions. So no news is good news for the NFL at this time of year.
Do you get the sense that I know the ratings have bounced back on television, but there's still the issue of not all fans filling stadiums. Is that part of this, or is that more expense-related?
No, I think that's part of it. I think, football, we did a related series over the fall that I led about how participation in football at the youth and high school levels are just plummeting
at
very alarming rates. And I think, NFL's threat is they may hollow out their audience, their participants, and, the future of the game. If kids aren't playing it, they're not going to be following it. And if they aren't following it, those ratings are going to go down further. So, there's a lot of fundamental things wrong in professional sports.
Thanks, Joe. Joe Drape, reporter at the New York Times.
Now that Human Resources VP Ashley Campbell has Kronos for HR, payroll, talent, and time, she's managing her workforce like a rock star. She even has her own hype song.
I'm the spark before the fire. I'm the power in the train. I have a really diverse workforce with different hours, skill sets, and pay grades. Don't stop, don't stop. I'm the dream, you should know that. Now we're motivating and engaging the right people every step of the way.
Kronos, HR solutions for the modern workforce and the people who support them. Learn more at kronos.com/HR swagger.
The news you need and nothing you don't. You're listening to America's First News This Weekend with Gordon Deal.
Hey, glad you're with us. People spend a lot of time wondering if they'll have the means to retire, often ignoring the equally important calculation, do they have the will to retire? A job, historically seen as simply a way to make money, is increasingly the source of the types of friendship and stimulation that are hard to find in bingo halls or on beaches or riding a golf cart. But that approach is changing, so says John Stoll, business columnist at the Wall Street Journal. John, explain the change.
Yeah, I think, it's not rocket science to understand that retirement and our expectations of retirement are changing. A lot of this has to do with money and concerns about Social Security and concerns about rising health care and financial. But even if the finances line up or come close to lining up, a lot of folks at the magic age of 65 or a little bit older, a little bit earlier, are making a decision to stay in the workforce. And this is gathering steam for some of the reasons I discussed, but also people like to work. They like the social and emotional and even spiritual benefits that the workplace offers that, a lot of other institutions are no longer offering as prevalently as they once did. So you were finding the workplace to be a place where people not only are going to make money, but they actually are living a heck of a lot of their lives there. And when they get to the point when they got to quit, they start saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to fully leave the workforce and hit the shuffleboard court.
Yeah. There's the issue of dementia, too, right? I mean, this helps keep you at least a little bit sharp mentally.
Yeah, I think the research is preliminary and incomplete on how the health benefits of continuing to work into your 70s, how dominant those health benefits are. But I think most the folks that I talk to, both on the economist side, folks with medical backgrounds, would say that if you're able, it will definitely, working past 65, even for a few years, has the potential to add years onto your life, definitely has the potential to stave off diabetes, dementia, other illnesses that sometimes seep in with a lack of mobility and a lack of stimulus. The other thing that didn't really get too far into the piece, because I tried to stay a little bit away from the financial realm and more about the emotional realm, but they're tied in that, Gordon, if you leave the workforce with a thin margin on your finances, you're going into a fixed income kind of environment, either it's Social Security or some other form of annuity that's paying your bills, that can lead to unintended or unforeseen stress that you may not have seen when you were in the workforce and drawing a regular paycheck and maybe had the opportunity to make even more.
We're speaking with John Stoll, business columnist at the Wall Street Journal. His piece is called On Business, or rather his column is called On Business. The piece is called The End of Retirement. I guess one of the questions I had, too, as we get older, is there room for us old folks in the workforce? Will there still be?
Yeah, and that is a great question, and I think that there are a lot of forces that would imply we are getting to a better place when it comes to room in the workforce for folks who traditionally would have grayed out. So, number one, the healthy job market in terms of at least openings. There's a lot of places hiring. The gig economy is offering a lot of flexibility, whether it's an Uber driver or owning a property and marketing on an Airbnb up and down the line of kind of contractual hourly things. But the blue chip or the corner store or the big giant tech company needs to do a lot of work. Maybe this is the next column. Needs to do a lot of work on figuring out how to retain the skills that have been achieved and absorbed over 40 years in the workforce. Retain those skills without keeping people in those high pressure jobs that sometimes force people out of the workforce. So, employers need to think about those opportunities to have a much more flexible arrangement. Yeah, obviously maybe they make less money, but the benefits are really important, both the financial benefits of having health care, even though the Medicare would step in, and the benefits of having those relationships.
Thanks, John. John Stoll, business columnist at the Wall Street Journal. 21 minutes now after the hour on This Weekend.
Michigan is one of the best places in the country to do business, but you don't have to take our word for it. Take Patty Poppies, President and CEO of Consumers Energy, instead.
All of the innovation that's occurring around robotics, AI, it's happening here in Michigan. We have chemical companies, we have pharmaceutical companies, we have medical device manufacturers. Michigan is a magnet for innovators and dreamers.
Big things are happening in business here. Find out why by searching Michigan Pure Opportunity.
Thanks for being with us. Burger King touched off the plant-based meat revolution in the restaurant world when it launched its Impossible Whopper back in August. It was followed by offerings from the likes of Dunkin', White Castle, right? Subway, Little Caesars, KFC. You throw in Hooters, Taco Bell, Qdoba, Panera. But there's been one notable holdout, McDonald's. Here's Laura Riley, who covers the business of food at the Washington Post. Laura, set the scene.
Pretty much everyone's jumped on board. So plant-based is going nuts. It's the biggest trend of the decade, probably. Really launched by Burger King's Impossible Whopper, but followed swiftly by Subway, White Castle, Little Caesars, Panera. I mean, I think Panera just committed to having over 50% of its menu options plant-based, as of immediately. So we're really seeing a tidal shift in terms of plant-based offerings at fast food restaurants and, quick-serve restaurants. And the big holdout has been McDonald's.
And how come?
They're taking their time. So first of all, there's no single supplier that could scale up quickly enough to meet their demand. So they have 38,000 restaurants worldwide, 14,000 in the U.S. alone. So that's twice the number, or almost twice the number of Burger King outposts. So we're talking about an enormous endeavor, just in terms of scale. So that's one reason, but that's not the only reason. I kind of did a little searching. McDonald's is mum on the subject. They're not talking, but a lot of industry experts said, well, they've had line speed problems for the past couple of years, so 2017, 2018, in terms of drive-through times and counter service times. And part of that is because they've had too many menu offerings. So they really, really tried to scale back, limit the number of menu items, decommission ones that aren't performing well. And so this